Welcome to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast, and I am your host, Angie Grant. Today, I want to talk about mindset shifting and why knowing isn't always the solution. When I first jumped into the personal development field, like many others, I first started learning about the work of Napoleon Hill through the lens of Bob Proctor, who his work was then shared through my first coach, Julie Ciardi. And one of the key concepts, one of the foundational concepts in that work is this idea that our thoughts create our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. But there are a few other steps in there that I want to talk about today. This actually came up last week while I was conducting a workshop at a local recovery center. And I was talking about just that. Oftentimes, the topics there go down the path of addiction, but sometimes relationships or parenting, sometimes work-related things. And I find it so fascinating how right there is so much value to understanding the concept that you know we don't typically get to control the circumstances in our life. We get to influence many of them, but so many things will happen in our life that are out of our control. And then there are some things that we think are out of our control, but it is our actions that precipitate those circumstances in our life. What we were talking about at this workshop last week was this idea that, something happens. Perhaps when we think about this through the lens of parenting, right? Maybe, maybe the kids are getting into a fight and one child snatches a toy from the other child, and the victim in this situation screams or hits or kicks or throws the toy at them, or they could do so many different things. That is the circumstance. And we as parents have an immediate thought about what just happened. Your thought might be, oh crap, here we go again. Or it might be something more along the lines of, why are they always fighting? Or, what's wrong with my kid? What's wrong with me as a parent? Our thoughts can go down so many different paths. But honestly, that thought that we have is really more of a firmly held belief. We don't tend to, in these reactive type situations, we don't tend to just reactively create new thoughts. We tend to pull from our deeply held belief system. And part of that belief system is a belief about how others should behave, about how our kids should behave, or about how we're doing as parents. So that idea of like, oh, here we go again, right? That's a belief that this is a reoccurring behavior problem with your kids. Or that belief that, this is happening because you're not doing well enough as a parent, that maybe you're missing the mark. That's a belief about your value as a parent. When our reactive belief system about what's happening in our life with our kids, in our most important relationships, when that firmly held belief is something that we don't want to be thinking or believing, but it's on repeat. It's not something that we're consciously pulling into those situations. It happens without us even having to think about it. That's actually the magic of beliefs, right? That we don't have to put conscious effort into thinking them, and yet they run the show. So when we have these beliefs that are perhaps the kids are out of control, or um, or maybe it's a reflection of your value as a parent or how skilled you are, or you have this belief that kids aren't supposed to act this way, or the kids are supposed to get along. I have said out of my own mouth, and I've heard many other parents do it too, that idea of like, how many times do I have to teach you or show you or explain to you before this skill will sink in with you? We do it all the time, right? Like, I've told you how to share, or you know how to share. We all say those things. Or, well, I guess I can't say we all do, but many of us do, right? We say these things based on our belief system that we believe if we've shown our kids how to do something or taught them how to do something, that they should get it right 100% of the time. And yet, here we are as parents, although we know we've learned that there are different ways to handle our kids' behaviors, we have not let those new ideas settle into our belief system because we think we don't have evidence yet. So we have this belief that our kids are supposed to know better, do better, act better, behave better. And when that is our belief, that leads to our feelings of frustration or defeat or exhaustion or failure. It can also lead to feelings of feeling like we're not valuable or we're not lovable. We can feel like we've lost our power with our kids. We can feel like the kids have taken over. And when we're feeling defeated and frustrated and sometimes even resentful with our kids, then that next step in that equation that we all go through over and over again every day, that next step is our actions, right? So our actions can be things like yelling at the kids or giving them consequences or punishing them or spanking them or withholding our affection from them. We do all kinds of things, and we're designed to do things a little bit differently, right? We're each so unique, but we all have our reaction. Sometimes our reaction is out loud, sometimes our reaction is more within, but we have a reaction nonetheless, based on our belief system, based on the feelings that our beliefs trigger, based on how we are processing the situation in front of us. So let's walk through this model, right? This there's a circumstance, we have a thought, it creates a belief, we have a feeling about that belief, and then we act a certain way, and then we have a result, right? So let's walk through this. So the kids are fighting over a toy. So that's the situation. Our initial thought is, oh gosh, here we go again. Or, the kids are fighting. Dinner's burning on the stove and the kids are fighting, right? Whatever that might be. Our strongly held belief is, I have shown them 1,000 times how to share. They need to be better at this, right? That's a belief that we hold, perhaps. Then our action is to yell at the kids, how many times do I have to tell you to share? Or you need to share with your brother. So we have this action. And then the result is that the behavior still isn't changing with our kids. We're still left feeling frustrated. We're feeling disconnected from our kids. We're in this loop of resent and regret in our relationship with our kids. It happens over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that that's how all of our interactions are with our kids, but this is the one that parents come to me because they want to change. And I get it, right? It's creating this rift in your relationship with your kiddos. And when we have this snag in our relationship, it's hard to connect. It's hard to teach them. It's hard as parents to feel like we are able to give and receive love the way that we want to with our kids. It impacts our sense of value for many of us. It's not what we want for our kids. And yet our mind knows, right? We have gone to so many trainings, so many workshops, read so many books, listened to so many podcasts. We could probably be considered an expert in parenting tools and strategies for behavior problems. At least I know I can. My list of how many presentations I've given, how many courses I've taken, certifications I have about parenting and behaviors are my list is huge. And yet still sometimes in the moment, my belief system takes over. And I have this belief that, well, I've taught you this before. Why aren't you using it? When I take a step outside of, so this is the discussion that happened last week at this workshop. When we take a step outside of our own situation and really say like, wow, look at that parallel process that's happening. I, as the adult in this situation, have learned how to better handle behaviors. I have learned new strategies. And yet, when the moment comes, I react out of old patterns. Yet we expect our kids who are doing exactly as we are, right? They've learned new ways to share. They've learned new ways to be a good friend. They've learned new ways to not snatch a toy or scream at their brother or sister. And yet in the moment, they react because, well, they're just like us. And if we want to break that cycle with our kids, it's up to us to go first. So here's what I want to talk about today is that I think out in the parenting behavior world, there's this idea that if we could just teach parents that next best strategy, they'll have it all figured out and they'll stop yelling at their kids and they'll stop feeling frustrated. But here's what I know about human behavior is it isn't that easy to change. You think about the idea of smoking, right? Or some other habit that you might have. So if you're somebody who has a habit such as smoking, and your brain knows that it's bad for you, your brain knows that, all this research says that it is unhealthy for your lungs. It can lead to such, drastic medical problems. Your brain knows that. There's no doubt about that, right? There's warning labels on the packages. There's no doubt that people who smoke know that it is bad for their health. And yet their belief system is one that, yeah, but I haven't gotten sick yet, or yeah, but I haven't died yet, or yeah, but I know so many people who have smoked until they were 97 years old and they didn't die from lung cancer, right? We hold on to these belief systems that then lead to our feelings. And of course, there's an addictive nature to cigarettes, but my point being that it is our belief system that is the part that needs to be changed. We don't need more knowledge. We need to work on that core belief system, which is so interlocked. It's tangled up with our feelings, right? Let me say that again. Our belief system, although it was originally created from thoughts, our belief system is tangled up, interwoven with our feelings. And so if we want to break these cycles for ourselves as parents, right? We try so hard to break these cycles with our kids, right? We teach them again and again and again how to break the cycle of, hitting their sibling. Or we try to teach our kids how to break the cycle of, doing some other unpleasant behavior, yet we ourselves aren't modeling that. And so here's what I have learned about helping adults to break the cycles when there's something that you want and you've learned all the things you need to learn, but putting it into place is hard, right? You try to put in a new routine and, put a mantra in front of yourself and do all these things. Those parts I think are really helpful. And for many of us, and of course, we're all so different. So, of course, keep that in mind as I'm sharing this. Because for some people, for some behaviors, for some things, having a daily reminder is what it takes to change that belief. There is value in that, or having positive affirmations. Sometimes that is what it takes to change our belief. But I also think because our belief system is so entangled with our emotions that we need a tool or a strategy or a way to target that piece, to target the beliefs and or the feelings. This is actually why I use EFT tapping for myself with my clients in the work that I do, because I find, and what I have learned about it and what I understand about EFT is that it kind of targets both, right? In EFT tapping, the phrase that we start with is a phrase of acceptance, which is really chipping away at our belief system. When we use that phrase, even though, and then we state our problem, right? Like, even though I'm so frustrated with the kids right now, that takes us out of that space of being so frustrated with the kids and feeling like a victim. It takes that belief, right? Because that's the belief that leads to the yelling at the kids is this victim state, right? Like, I have lost control. The kids aren't listening to me. They're supposed to be listening to me and they're not changing. That is our strongly held belief, which is a victim state. When we use something like EFT tapping, not only are we chipping away at that belief, but then in the act of tapping on those acupressure points, we are sending safety messages to our stress response system, to our amygdala. So that is targeting that feeling or emotions part of this equation. When we're sending safety signals to our nervous system, which when I was saying before feelings, right? When I first learned the model, the circumstances first, but then our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and our results. When I was talking about the beliefs and feelings in the middle there, what I really mean is our nervous system. Because while yes, our mind is holding on to those beliefs, it is our nervous system that is reacting in the moment. So if we really want to change our reactions with our kids or with our partner or our boss or whoever it might be, if we really want to change the way that that equation kind of works for you, you want to break that cycle, it really does require you to get at the nervous system level. Working on the thoughts is important, but really breaking that cycle, I think for so many of us, requires really getting at the nervous system level. We can't think our way out of having a nervous system reactive response because it's not designed that way. That idea of, when I don't know why a bear is always my example, but, our nervous system is designed that if we're, out in the woods and we see an image that looks like a bear, our nervous system reacts quickly without thinking, without engaging our brain. In fact, it reacts in such a way that our body shuts off parts of our brain, sends or gives less, I don't know, playtime to the rest of our brain so that the nervous system can really do its job, do what it's really designed to do. So, but that same thing is happening when, for example, our kids are yelling, our kids are fighting, or whatever those reactive things that you're doing. It is your nervous system that is doing the reacting in the moment. So if you want to change that, that's where we start. We start with something somatic. EFT tapping is my jam. It's what I love doing for myself. It's what I love doing with my clients. It's what I love sharing. But there's so many other ways to do it. And it's not for me to choose what's right for you, but I, I want to share this message that learning more isn't exactly what you need. It's about really tapping into what your nervous system needs, helping your nervous system feel calm about those particular situations so that you can create a space where you're more likely to respond so that you can break that cycle. Because if we want our kids to change their behaviors, we can tell them how to do it until we're blue in the face. But really, they will learn best from watching it happen in action, not from us telling them how to do it. We know that, right? It's another one of those knowing doing gaps, right? We know that our kids learn so much more from watching us, and yet we still have this belief that just doesn't even make sense. We don't have much evidence to it. We have this belief that our kids should know better. We have this belief that we tell our kids something and they should just start doing it, and yet we don't. So this is the work that I do. This is how I help my clients. I love I love helping people get out of that victim mode because if I'm being honest, I wouldn't have called it that then. But 5 years ago, 10 years ago, before I knew these concepts, I definitely was in the victim mode. My reactive state, I was such a victim to the circumstances that were happening to me. And I had no idea that I had control over it. I had no idea that I had the ability within me, with some support, but I had the ability within me to create peace and calm no matter what was happening around me, no matter what types of behaviors were showing up in my life. And I wasn't a reactive parent. That yelling isn't really my jam. But my reaction was to shut down, to put up a really tough brick wall that made it really hard for me to give and receive love to my son who needed it more than anybody I know. Because that was my reaction to this belief that perhaps love wasn't enough to help him. It is kind of the core of this podcast is that I had this belief that love isn't enough and I don't know what else to do. And I'm trying so freaking hard to connect with him and it's not working. And maybe I'm inadequate. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And here's the thing, none of that was true, but it was a firmly held belief that I held on to because I didn't know that I had the power to change that. I didn't know that by using some different strategies, instead of learning more, I did not need to learn any more. But by using some different strategies, I really had the power and now use my power to regulate my nervous system so I can show up for my most important relationships. So when you're ready to break that cycle in your family, I'd love to help you out. I offer a free connection clarity call. The link is, as always, in the show notes. And I just, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode. I'd love to hear how you are using some somatic-based strategies to help calm your nervous system to break that cycle as well. So that's it. We will chat soon.